Hi there, everyone. This is Sophia,
and this is Jamey,
and we are here to talk with you guys today about something that has become really well known as the event. We're popping in kind of at random, so I know that it's going to probably take a little bit of time for other people to get potentially here to watch, so let's just give it a second. In the meantime, we'll let you know we have created Sacred Space. Obviously, many of you know, or most of you know, that we are now divorced. This is still my bestie. As a matter of fact, this is something I was planning on talking about by myself. And because we were already hanging out, and this is the person that I've spent the vast majority of my time talking about this event with, since we first heard about it, he seemed like the ideal person to talk about this with. I do want to let you guys know that we may try and look at the questions, but for the most part we're just going to be talking conversationally and about things we've discussed many times before, and let you guys see how it resonates with you. Hello everybody that has arrived. We're really excited to see you. To start things off, I just want to say in regards to the event, now my friend group is a very, very ecstatic group of friends as far as the friends on Facebook. Now, many of you, the event is common knowledge. This is something you hear about all of the time. This won't be, well, it's not that this information won't be news to you, but as far as the term, the event, it won't be news to you at all. Whereas we live in Salt Lake City, Utah, so within our actual community, the physical community we live in, this is not talked about. Even if there's people here that know about it, this isn't something you hear people whispering about in the coffee shops. This is not, you know, whispers on the wind talking about the event. If you want to hear about the event, you have to seek it out. You have to, I mean, if there's people here that are talking about it, they're really not talking about it where I'm aware of it. And so I've been hesitant to discuss this topic for the main reason, I don't care if people think I'm crazy. Honestly, obviously, you guys see my videos. I really don't care what people think about me. Sorry. But I do care. If I'm going to share information, I want to offer it in a way that's going to be received by as many people as possible. I certainly don't want to ever have people feel judged. And the event is a pretty high level topic as far as what is actually happening. And so I've been hesitant to discuss it, because sometimes you need kind of like baby steps to discuss that. But really, the world is getting to such a place that it is important to discuss this topic, I think. Yeah?
Yeah, you know, I guess the closest thing that most of us who grew up here in Utah and different parts of the world would associate the term the event with the second coming, right? That might be the closest thing.
Right, and there's so many different things to call it.
Right.
I mean, some people have called it the end of times. That's, if it is the end of times, that's symbolic, because time is an illusion that's in the third dimension. It's not really linear. So if it's the end of time, it's only the end of time as we have previously perceived it to be.
And in spiritual talk and in spiritual or esoteric concepts, everything is parables.
Right.
And so the end of times is not a literal. It's a parable. So,
right. It's a parable. Exactly.
So I'm excited about.
So the event is another way of saying something that many of us have heard before. But like I said, this is something we probably heard about, I'd say about a year ago for the first time, and we started to really dissect this concept. And I was still hesitant to offer it at all on a public level, because ultimately you want to offer information that people are going to be willing to at least learn from, or try to learn from. So what I've ultimately determined here is, if I was a skeptic of this, I would still want to know what the other people are talking about. I'd still want to know what they're discussing. What kind of information are they saying? And do they have any kind of information at all to back up what they're saying? Right. So ultimately, I think it's important to discuss today. I've asked Jamey to help me in the process.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for being here. And basically, I want to explain a little bit about what the event is in terms of how I understand it to be. You can see if this is how he's also come to understand it, and see how that makes sense to you, okay? So I'm a studier of patterns. My entire life I've been fascinated with studying all sorts of mythologies, all sorts of religions, all sorts of ancient cultures, philosophies, ethics, anything that I can. And I'm fascinated when I find patterns, especially patterns that are like ancient patterns where people on the planet didn't seem to have ways that they would be able to communicate with each other that makes sense from an analytical or a rational standpoint, and yet they were very clearly communicating, and they were saying pretty much the same things. They were just saying them in different languages. So this is one of those things that really I've noticed resonates and goes through patterns all throughout the world, and that is that this time in history, right now, supposed to be a pretty flippin' big deal,
sure,
right? I mean,
cultures, religions.
We were raised in a very staunch religious individually, but the same religion, and in that one, we were told this was when Christ would return.
Yep.
I certainly do believe this is the time when the Christ consciousness is returning to the planet. There's, like we said, there's lots of things talking about apocalypse or judgment day. I definitely don't resonate with that level of fear mongering. That's not how it's going to happen. But there's been a lot of different ways that this time has been discussed. The Mayans, of course, discussed December 21st, 2012, and that was actually way profound energetically, even if everything didn't just up and blip in the change of an eye, and maybe some of the skeptics would like to say things like, well, nothing really happened. Yeah, it did. A whole lot happened, and it's still happening. It hasn't stopped happening since. Now, as I've been looking at these patterns throughout history, I couldn't help but notice that they all talked about this similar time in history, and yet my mind wanted to try to grasp how that could happen. I mean, when you look around, there's just so much contrast. It's so extreme. It's so polarized. We have some of the best people who have ever lived on the face of planet Earth, but we arguably have some of the worst, quote, very, very extreme on the quote, some of the most difficult people. Lots of density going on planet Earth right now. We get that. And yet, how does it change quickly? How does something that's that extreme change rapidly? I never really understood how that could even happen until I was exposed to the concept of the event. What the event is a compilation of plasmic waves that are being directed at planet Earth by beings that are very heavily invested in seeing the love and the light return to this planet. Not just return to this planet, but take this planet to its next phase of planetary evolution. And guess what? If you're on a planet, when it's ascending, you're along for the ride. So this is not just this is not something that just affects nature. This is not something that just affects some individuals. This is something that affects, and quite frankly, this is not just something that affects planet Earth.
A bit bigger than that.
It's a whole lot bigger than that. This is a galactic ascension. This is a huge ripple effect. People all throughout the universe are learning from the experiences that we're having, which is part of the reason they love us so much. That is pretty cool that they're learning from our experiences. And also, ultimately, free will is not really an optional thing. It's a universal law, and there's a lot that's happened on planet Earth to very, very consciously manipulate that free will. And when that happens, other beings get really upset about that. They want to come in and save the day. They want to help because they would want done unto them or they want to do for us what they would want done unto them, because we are all so deeply connected that it does directly affect them. It directly affects other beings within the universe if an entire planet is being manipulated with fear. And so there's a lot of beings that are vested in seeing the success of the planet. And those beings are beings that have higher dimensional knowledge. Those are beings that understand things to such a degree that is really kind of hard for humans to comprehend most of the time without just extreme levels of study and inward journeying. That said, these higher dimensional beings understand light. They understand that light is intelligent. They understand that divine light is deeply intelligent and healing, and that it does go and will go wherever healing is needed. Divine light isn't blocked out by walls. You can't build a wall high enough to block out divine light. Divine light penetrates through a planet similar to how wind penetrates through a fence, through a metal grate fence. It just blows right through. Divine light will go anywhere that it's needed, and it will help the planet grow in the exact ways that it's needed. Now, I want you to think about what was one of the first things that we used as a way of kind of visualizing this. Like researchers, scientists. If you want to think about a bunch of scientists that are in a lab and they're doing experiments, okay? Well, think about how powerful lasers are. Lasers are what? It's not bullets coming out of those things. That's light. Light is very, very powerful. You can have lights, especially when you mix a light with a crystal. You can make lights that are powerful enough to blow things up. You can make lights that are powerful enough to cause all sorts of different kinds of mutations. But if you go...
Or heal.
Or what?
Or heal.
Or heal things, yes. Oh, absolutely.
Laser lights.
Yeah, talk about your experience with that, actually.
So I had the opportunity to work with chiropractors and the holistic medicines where I was exposed to healing through light. Never really thought much of it, and always kind of like didn't put a whole lot of stock in it as a kind of a novelty thing until I was in India going through a surgery, and I had a mishap where I was burned very, very badly. My feet were. And it was my heels had equivalent to a jolt of lightning, or well, it went through my body.
Piezoelectric burst.
And long story short, it came out my ankles, and both my ankles were so burned that I couldn't even walk. When I got home, I had a chiropractic friend of mine say, just pack it with aloe vera and use the laser light. So I went and bought a laser light, learned how to work it, and took a healing process from about a year down to 3 weeks. It was amazing.
Right, just kind of miraculous how it healed before your very eyes.
And it was just light.
Right. And not just light. Light is everything in the universe is light, but this kind of plasmic light, this kind of divine light that we're talking about penetrating our planet is the most healing light that there is capable of having. That's just like ultimately the most healing light that there is. That doesn't mean that everything that it causes is going to be pleasant, because divine light is going to draw things to the surface. It's going to force things in the public light. It's going to force shadows out.
And part of that is force healing.
It is for healing. That's the exact same thing that happens with a wound. If you go into a wound, you don't actually heal it if you don't get into the deep part and pull out the deepest, darkest seeps. As much as doctors want, well, I shouldn't say doctors, all doctors, but as much as many people in the medical professional would want to cover up a wound, you've got to go to the very depths of the wound. You've got to go to the depths of the wound to heal it. It cannot be covered by any kind of a Band-Aid, or it just seethes and festers. Doesn't actually get better. This is happening on a public level. This is happening globally. This is happening on a planetary level. More earthquakes than we've ever had. Now, I'm not trying to cause any level of fear. Actually, this is a really beautiful thing. This is an evolutionarily designed, divinely orchestrated process that is designed to make sure that we win. We have won. We are now just going to see the outcome of the love and light battle. And as you can imagine, in a world that's kind of based on perspective, it takes time for these things to actually take place. But the process has already occurred as far as light winning. It's just a process of now taking those things and integrating the light, the divine light. And that happens through a process of waves. These waves didn't necessarily start at the end of the Mayan calendar. They're subjectively roughly 11/11/2000 2011 to December 21st, 2012. That's not necessarily when the waves started, but let's be very clear that a galactic change happened that really opened up a door that allowed Gaia to start healing in a way that she really wasn't able to heal before that. And this divine light comes in waves. As we heard the physicists explaining it, when a solar wave hits, like a solar flare, which there have been many, many, including a huge one in March. I'll probably have him talk to you about that in a second. But when those hit, the process of raining down energy over the planet is similar to that of an onion peeling. It goes down wave by wave by wave by wave and becomes stronger as it gets closer to the core. The Mayans also talk about a very similar thing that's happening called wave spells. And in these wave spells, we've got plasmic light and waves of divine information and activations in light that are raining down upon planet Earth in very, very specific, measurable, calculatable, divinely orchestrated process that is built up to get us to a tipping point. And when that tipping point happens, there's a wave that comes that's, well, the waves that have come so far, unless you're extraordinarily sensitive, highly sensitive to things clairvisually, there are many people who have seen these plasma waves previously. Right now, it's hard to look outside and not see how thick the air is.
Sure.
But for the most part, they've been somewhat clear because plasma is a viscous.
Right. Well,
I'm going to let you explain this for me,
yeah,
if you don't mind.
Normally the sun will send out what are called X-rays, and we all know what an X-ray is, or like a radio wave, and that is, we cannot see that with our eyeballs, with
Right.
the human eye. However, we also know that 99% of the universe is made up of what is called plasma, and plasma is an important feature. We see it in the sky with our clouds, we see it in the aurora borealis.
Right.
And so that is plasma. So since that is everywhere, there's different forms of that. Just like water, where there's a solid, there's a liquid, and then there's an ether, depending on the temperature of that. So as we start to receive this influx of light, oftentimes that light hits, other things that are happening, going on, like other electrons from the Earth's electromagnetic sphere, which we can see the mist.
Right.
We can visually see it now because
We totally can.
it's combining.
Right. Now, we're not only getting plasma from the sun, which is arguably the one of the biggest ways to get one nearby. It's a really, really huge neighbor star, and it is spewing plasmatic light at planet Earth, and has been at least, if not longer, but at least since March 15th, 2018. A huge canyon opened. This was actually verified on NASA. This is not, I mean, you look it up yourself.
Yeah. March
We
14th,
just double checked
15th,
the
yeah.
information that we had originally read back in March so that we could verify it, and it's still available on NASA. So you can see that there was a gigantic canyon that opened on the sun, second week of March 2015 or 18, excuse me. And when one of these waves opens, I mean, the Earth, let's see, if it was a couple, like 10,000 or 20,000 miles wide, it would still be roughly 1/1000th to 1/2000th the size of the sun, this little hole. Okay, this is a tiny hole, but for it to be directly facing at planet Earth, that's a pretty impressive likelihood right there. So there's a plasma hole that's opened up on the sun facing planet Earth.
Right.
That is, the likelihood of that hitting it is so minuscule that it's pretty hard to consider it coincidental by any means. And it's spewing divine light and plasma from the center of a sun. That is pretty powerful light right there.
Right.
That's divine light, if I've ever heard of divine light.
Yeah, so I like to kind of picture it like this.
Okay.
You know how you have your hair dryer and it's got different settings like low, medium, high?
Yeah.
And higher blows more air. Well,
Right.
imagine if that's directed to you and you've got the highest setting and it's blowing out nice warm hair or nice warm air, but then all of a sudden it goes up like 20, a factor of 20.
Yeah.
But that's light now. Now
Right,
all
and
that
it's just light.
yeah,
So-
all that light is going to make you feel changes.
Right, you'll
So-
feel a lot of positive changes, but you'll also feel pressure, especially if you don't know it's happening. It's like pressure's coming from different angles. Now imagine if that light's also coming from stars. Imagine, whether this resonates with you or not, I just want to offer the possibility. What if there's other loving beings that are right out there watching how this occurs, and they are also raining down divine light upon us? What if we have it coming from a lot of different sources, and all of a sudden the pressures that we're feeling that seem like they're coming from a lot of different directions seem to make a little bit more sense? But if we can understand that the reason we're feeling that way is because we're about to upgrade like 17,000% into a much more loving place of planet Earth,
Right.
I think it's a little bit worth the experience. Now, as far as the event, what we haven't talked about yet is the event. What we've talked about is like precursors, or how it could work, how plasmatic light can... Oh yeah, what I was talking about earlier, I can't believe I didn't finish this, when we were talking about like having researchers in a lab, okay? So if they wanted to go take some type of organic substance, moss or something, and shine down heavy, divine, plasmatic light on it for a really long time, I can't guarantee you what would happen, but I can almost guarantee you it would morph. It would change. It will evolve. It will turn into something more advanced than what it is, because of the fact that you are just raining it down with plasmatic divine light.
Right.
Now, in regards to that divine plasmatic light, as it's just raining down and raining down and raining down, we might not see it very clearly at first unless you're extraordinarily highly sensitive to things such as auras and things like that. However, over time, the air just gets thicker and thicker. You start noticing more rainbows. You start noticing
Shimmering.
just shimmers and things catching in the air, because the air itself is thicker. Look at the sunsets. Have you ever seen sunsets really quite like this? I'm not saying they're necessarily more pretty or less pretty. They are different. They're different than, I would say, dare say, more pretty, but but they are certainly different than anything I've ever really quite seen before. Now, all of these things are precursors, because there is something known in science, known in the universe as the tipping point. The tipping point is this magnificent place that people get eventually, or that your psyche can get, or that a mass consciousness can get, or that a group of ducks can get, or it doesn't matter. I mean, the group consciousness works through the process of a tipping point. When 51% of a group of birds decide that they want to turn, the whole group turns together as though they are one unified team. Well, this tipping point also happens on a planet Earth that's getting penetrated with light. Once 51% of the people, once 51% of the energetic nature of the planet is coming to terms with the fact that this is different than what we've been told, and it's far more beautiful. Once that recognition happens, there is a wave that will be visible. At least according to these theorists, I offer you to, this is something I will admit resonates heavily with me, but I don't want to tell you you have to believe this. But this is, as it's theorized, and as makes perfect sense to me, even from a physics standpoint, there is a larger wave, a much larger wave that would be coming, and potentially more than one of these. And those large waves are visible to the naked eye, no matter how spiritual or not spiritual you are. Now, they would either be like a divine white light, potentially I've heard a pink or a violet light, or maybe even a rainbow light. Now, sounds real pretty, doesn't it? A gigantic wave of light coming at you. It's hard to think you'd be real scared about that. And yet, there's a lot of people, we have this thing called the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism. It's a very ancient, deep-built limbic brain mechanism that we have. And a lot of people, when they're exposed to something, anything coming at them rapidly that they are just simply not expecting in any way, it's fight, flight, or freeze that they feel. It doesn't matter if it's a wave of rainbow light that looks pretty. Some people are going to get scared. It's not a scary thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's the beginning of a huge change. Some people might even want to turn around and go in the opposite direction. That wouldn't really help, but you're welcome to try. And some people may freeze. They may not, they just may simply not know what to do. Whether you think I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs for bringing this up, and him too, or whether you resonate with it, it's good to know about the potential. And if it does happen, at the very least, I know you're a little less likely to freeze. You're a little more likely to help your neighbor to the left or to the right that is scared and that's freaking out, because whether or not you thought it was bogus, you at least had some idea something like this might happen. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, you know, the beautiful thing about it is once you understand a lot of the laws of physics and apply it to the law of attraction, the thing about infusing more light into a scenario and understanding plasma is you can manifest things more quickly.
Exactly.
And if you are scared of the event, you manifest things that are scary. And when you understand this and you manifest things that are beautiful, it could be I don't know, maybe a rainbow light with pots at the, or gold at the ends.
We certainly would hope that if anyone sees it coming, even if you think we're silly right now for talking about it, we'd hope if it comes that at the very least you'd say, you know what, this is a beautiful thing that's about to happen, because what you want is to be in a place of positivity when that happens, and a place of high vibration, at least as high as you can be in that moment, knowing that something kind of unusual is happening, because we'll find that the paradigm change is not just going to be a paradigm of psyche. It's not just going to be a paradigm of mass consciousness. The planet Earth paradigm is going to change. The convex will become the concave. The energetic matrices will be different. And when that happens, it is something really, really, really beautiful to look forward to, but it will be ever much more important to guard your thoughts more than it ever has been, that the thoughts be really positive, because we certainly, in a world where we're able to utilize light in a way that is really, really manifesting things much more quickly, it's very helpful that those thoughts and those feelings be coming from a really positive place. Right.
And I like to think of this, especially when we were first learning all the terms, the event, you know, the second coming, whatever. What I like to think of it is you know, right now is October, and we're heading into, whether you believe in Christmas or not, we're heading into the holiday seasons, and people's attitudes change a little bit. There's a little bit more fun in the air. It's a little bit colder, of course, but you know, people are nice, so there's a little bit more love, and you can people a little bit more patient, and they don't honk as quickly as the person who doesn't immediately drive away when the light turns green. People are a little bit more loving.
Right.
Well, the event to me is not all of a sudden where, you know, 4 million aliens are going to appear in the sky, or all of a sudden the governments across the world are going to crash in one day. But it is going to be kind of like that feeling of Christmas, and that's what I look for. It's going to get better, but Christmas is always going, or that holiday feeling of love as we infuse more light is just going to get better and better and better.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to the event as it happens over time, and if those waves happen in a magnificent way like that, I'll look for the rainbow.
Right. So, in any case, I'm a little surprised that we wound up covering this topic today, but it did seem like it's really important. It's hard not to see a lot of evidence as we look outside of the things. I mean, this already resonated with us a long time ago as really a way that the only thing that would make sense for this type of thing to happen about the blue light.
Yeah, you know, we know, quite frankly, that there's changes. Just use your own eyes, go out in nature, and just notice how much more clear and beautiful
and just ask
high
questions.
Definition things are.
Look up things like, just look up the word pole shifts.
Yeah, solar flares.
Look up the word solar flares. Look up Gaia ascension. These are things, I don't care if you're looking them up to make fun of them. Go for it. I don't care. At least know what people are talking about, so that you're not just closed-minded and not at all aware of the things that other people are discussing. As much as I may spend tons and tons of time studying spiritual topics, I'm not so high up in the the clouds sitting in the Himalayas studying spirituality, that I'm not connected to our earth and the things that are happening with our mass consciousness, we'll say. Like, I connect with both aspects of those things. So it's important, whether or not you resonate with information, to at least be open-minded enough to look at what other people are saying, so that you can utilize discernment. Discernment is a gift that only happens through learning about different things and then saying, aha, this piece and this piece and this piece resonate with me. You can utilize heart and soul and love without learning lots of different things, but you can't utilize discernment without being willing to learn different things.
You definitely got to have an open mind to be able to at least be exposed to something before you can discern whether or not it's for you or whether or not it's for somebody else.
I mean, one of my favorite things is having friends who are willing to disagree with me on stuff. I don't want people to necessarily agree with me on everything, because I don't learn as much that way. So at least be willing to share ideas and information with other people, just with the open-ended possibility that you might not agree at the end. And, you know, I'm totally happy to be the friend of yours that you invite to the party, and you guys say, that's my crazy friend Anna. That's cool. I don't care. I'll still be your fun friend. And if some of the things I say end up coming true someday, then you'll wind up feeling maybe a little bit different, but in the meantime, we can still be friends.
Sounds good.
All right. Yeah. We love you guys a lot. If something like the event does occur, which it kind of is, in my opinion, just know we're sending you all even more love and light than the cosmos are. Love you guys.
Love and light.
Bye.